Good morning. This is August 20th, 2019, and our meeting is at 9 in the morning. And I'm Ron Weber.
Pam Birmingham.
Connie Moore.
Victoria Sage.
Julia Decker.
Our agenda goes on to Goal 1 background report. Staff.
Okay, so the Goal 1 background report is in your binders. It's pretty short, and it's just meant to give you an idea about the role that citizen involvement plays as part of the planning process. The comprehensive plan was adopted in 1980, and it was based on citizen involvement from 6 committees around the county, and you're part of one of those committees now. After it was dissolved, 5 of those committees, after it was adopted, 5 of those committees dissolved. 1 continued on as
The Southwest Coastal Citizens Advisory Committee, and it kind of morphed into a design review committee. ARCHCAC, right. That was very specific just to that small area. The others treated the assignment as ad hoc, and once their work was complete, those committees dissolved.
Yeah, and Julia was there for the dissolution of that committee, so if you have any questions. Anyway. So what we're looking for in our discussion today, and you've been given some questions on your agenda, and you're welcome to follow along with those or however the conversation takes you. And we're just kind of looking to see what you view as the strengths and weaknesses of our current citizen involvement activities. So we do public notices, when we get land use applications, published ads in the Daily Historian for legal notices for meetings. We have a county website that currently also has expanded to encompass this process, the comprehensive plan update. We reactivated our Facebook page, but it's a little difficult to get people kind of involved on the Facebook as well. Individual groups for each planning area are also available on the Facebook page, but I haven't really looked into that too much. So we're just sort of asking you if it's being effective. There was a comment at this open house that there wasn't enough coverage out here with the citizen involvement was kind of failing the citizens out here. So we kind of want to look at how we can make that better in this area specifically too. Just since you are out here and you know what it's like.
How do we get to you?
Finger on the pulse.
Right. Well, that's something that, I'm kind of wanting to approach step by step because it's, I'm trying to learn more about being a rural person. I mean, I've lived out here for years and years, but, I think I still have a Portland brain. So, it was really helpful for me to come to the open house and just hear, people's comments and to see where they were at.
But the Portland brain could be helpful. I mean, what emerging technologies are coming out that maybe were used in an urban environment that we can figure out how to apply them to this situation, which is vastly different. But, citizen involvement in the cities does seem to be a little more intensive.
Yeah, I've been trying to think of ways to turn, quote, too much regulation around into here's how it benefits you to have, some guidelines and regulations and a plan. Mm-hmm. So I've been kind of trying to think about it, to kind of expand the PR that way.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
I think the strength is this I think we're gonna have a lot better luck when the school gets started.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a very high traffic spot.
Okay.
And Mr. Steve, Superintendent Steve is all on our team. Whatever we can come up with, he'll help us with. One thing I thought the other day was would be easy to use is that electric billboard up front.
Oh, just is it like a moving?
Yeah. We get
Yeah,
a rate on
yeah,
there.
a lot of different information, meetings and things go on that, yeah.
What was I saying? Somehow, that's not a good word. Be proactive and figure and get it. Because they got a boatload of events here. But they're small groups, because that's what it is. It's to, if you just have a handout, hey, here's what's going on. So show up a basketball game or whatever it is, volleyball game. Show what that is, and just say, hey, hand them out, but be with the player brochure or whatever.
So let me throw a couple of ideas out here. Part of what we're looking for, of course, is the citizen involvement in this group. But the other thing is that we, after this process is finished, what we're looking for is a final product that's going to help obtain citizen involvement or citizen comment and input on projects or applications that affect the community. So right now, Goal 1 directs us, and remember that we're working under the framework of the state. The Goal 1 directs us to provide, for certain types of applications, a public notice to everyone within 250 feet or 270 feet, depending upon the zoning. So those mailings actually go to somebody and tell them this is going to happen on the lot next door to you, or this is what somebody is trying to do, has made an application for. We also use legal notices. So this is this legal framework, this legal outreach. But is it sufficient? And what else can we do? Because I'm not sure that, I love the idea of the school reader board for letting people know about meetings like this one. But I'm also looking at how do we tell people, hey, somebody has made an application, they want to put in a general store and gas pump down on blah, blah, blah. That's fantasy, I realize. How do we do that?
Well,
Besides
how do you get a hold of them? Yeah. How would you let people know?
Right, that's what we're looking for. How do we let people know those sorts of things? Because we've got the web page that people still don't seem to know
Correct.
about. We've got legal notices, we have published notices. We always let the radio stations know. But how do we get into your house and tell you these things?
Email or text?
Yeah, but we don't have everybody's email or text.
Right.
Okay, so what if we do one? I still think we're lacking on education. People, they may drive by and see on the reader board comprehensive plan update. They don't really know what that means. And I'm not one to try and use extra paper or mail out junk, but what if we did a flyer that could be mailed to every household out here?
That worked.
One
Yeah.
time.
Really good.
The one that Gail did,
Yeah.
the education.
And we got some, Bill's got it back. Actually, we should do the guy back here, the printer guy.
Like
we can
why?
we can use all that.
Why should you care? The county's updating the comprehensive plan. How can this affect you?
Yeah, and that's what I've been trying to build on in my
Involved
mind.
and
Yeah.
send the flyer one time to everybody and maybe ask them to sign up for an email list.
And we've been trying to get people to provide us with their email addresses. Some people don't like to give that to government.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the truth. They look
Yeah.
at us and
Yeah.
go,
Yeah.
Then that's their choice, basically. That sounds harsh, but if you want to be involved, if you care, and you want to stay informed, whether it's notices of application or these meetings, I don't know how else, because we're also isolated
Yeah, I like the idea of mailing that out. I've done that kind of, I mean, nothing that fancy. I've done that kind of a mailing before. I didn't get much feedback, but at least I felt like it went, it got to somebody's front steps.
How's your internet out here?
Fine, sketchy, fine.
My house is horrible. The only thing I can get is satellite, which is
That's what I have.
barely above dial-up. I mean, it's
So would you need the flyer to be very informative, like sort of something like this, or could it be a link to a web page? Do you think that would be sufficient?
Off of a mailer.
Yeah, something a little bit less information
I
heavy
would.
and then
Honestly, I don't think people are proactive enough to punch the button to the link. I'm serious.
Yeah.
Um,
If people, like smartphones out on my road, half the road, the smartphones don't work. And I don't even have one, in fact, because, it costs me so much to have the satellite, just to have internet, that I just, I go with and I can't do the cheap smartphone out in my area. So I do think that the internet connections are, and then if you've got, I really don't know what most people on my road have. I've got satellite and then I've got a flip phone. So, but I'm a computer person, so.
I couldn't get it to print on my printer at home. Do you have a statewide goal up to that? I found it and I couldn't print it, but you were talking about it, to match our goal with their goal.
Well, and our current goal does,
Okay,
but
I just wanted to read their stuff, but I couldn't get it.
well, it should
Is it on Oregon?
be in
yeah, you should have it in your binder.
in that binder. It should be
Okay.
Yeah, you should have been given all of the materials. We haven't expected you to print anything out.
Okay,
Oh.
okay.
Yeah.
I was worried. I
This
thought,
previous
I wonder if
batch?
there was
Yes.
some email I should have been looking for.
Yeah, all of the
Oh, okay.
materials that we
Okay.
gave you last time were for this
Those
meeting,
were-
and I have in the new packet, those are for next meeting.
Yeah.
'Cause I was
So
wondering
you
if
all
it's
have it
agenda.
ahead of time, so you have time to look
It was
through
right
it
there. I
before.
thought, well, I never know what that means.
Now,
Yeah, no, you've got it in
Okay.
that notebook.
so here's another question. This is a beautiful book put together. So I'm just wondering if should I treat it like a library book, or can I make notes on it?
It's yours to make notes on.
Mark it
up.
Okay.
Mark it up.
So back to getting people
Yeah.
involved. What about a local Facebook page for this process? If people don't want to give an email address,
There is a Facebook page for this process.
Yeah, I'm using Facebook less and less, quite frankly, but that doesn't mean I wouldn't be active with this one, but I don't like Facebook.
If you think creating one independent of the county would be more effective, though, then by all means.
I don't know, we first have to let people know about it by like a one-time mailer that went to every single household, saying, this is important, this can, no, you're shaking your
No, I
head.
don't, go ahead. They're not gonna, I was just gonna say, sorry, as I said, I moved here from Denver. I have noticed a very, very big lack of community spirit. How do you instill that? Because they're not gonna open up the flyer. And that's how that's gonna go. And it's not gonna get to the Facebook page. So how do you instill community spirit? I have beat my head against a rock trying to do that.
Well, that's where I'm at in my area.
You can't force people.
And I've been spending most of my time thinking about that.
You can't.
So I cherry pick the people that are type A, maybe to show up, you make sure they got their stuff, and diligently go and figure that out, and they still don't show up.
because they could come here, right, to one
Oh,
of
yeah.
these.
Mhm.
That was my
How do you do
sense of
that?
it when when I was reading the
I don't know.
emails and
You tell them
the reminder emails and
Mhm.
stuff.
You told them how it's going to affect them personally.
That's-
Because we're all busy
Mhm.
and
That's
we
what
all
I'm
want to
thinking.
help and go to these meetings and stuff, but really, in reality, unless it's going to maybe affect us personally, we don't. And as much as I hate to even consider giving up my evenings, most people work. And they can't come here on 9 o'clock on a work day. I'm fortunate enough to be
Then you have to be so
self-employed.
selective to make sure there's nothing school function going on to match that number.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the other advisory committees have an evening meeting time.
Yeah. I mean, I personally don't really like it, but if we want to get people to work involved.
Do,
Yeah.
do these other groups have this lack of participation?
Yeah, what's it like with the
What's
other
going on there? Do
groups?
people show up?
Let's see. So, the Classic Plains group is meeting in a Grange down on the plains
Mhm.
in the afternoon, and they have some other people show up and trickle in and out. The Lewis and Clark Olney and Waluski group is going to have their meeting, their Goal 1 meeting on Thursday this week. They will be meeting out at the fairgrounds. They're going to meet at 5. Theirs is a potluck. We'll see how that goes. I have no idea.
Oh, I said that. Free beer and food.
We can't do the county's not going to do alcohol. So let's see, who else have we got? The Southwest Coastal Community Group is meeting at, I think, 9:30 or 10 on Friday mornings. And they have a few people filter in and out of their meetings. Let's see,
How few is few?
2 or 3.
I know one of the things, and this is when I was getting involved in some other activities, is that I certainly don't have a lot of experience in marketing, but I do find that it's, I ran the Time Point Art Room for 6 years, and I just found that as I became more confident of my product, that I was able to draw students in who just wanted to be on their smartphone or something. When I kind of figured out the kinds of things that they seem to have fun with, and so I think where I'm going with this, without using too much of an odd example, is that I think, kind of tying back into what you said, is I think I'm wanting to figure out how I can pull out something that they could really latch onto, that is going to have personal meaning for them, and then use that as the tool. I don't know how much. I got the impression this is a fairly lengthy process. I know I had asked Gail in the last meeting if other people could get involved, say down a little bit down the road. I'm still trying to get my feet wet with this, and then I know that there's a couple of people. I happen to know one of the people personally that was at the open house here, which might not be my area, but that if I can figure out again how to make it important to them, then and just kind of start a dialogue and a connection and try to drag them in that way. But it seems to me that this is we're going to work on this over time, but I don't want to somehow that maybe I'm not understanding the schedule, and then I get them all set up to really do some more participation, and then we're past something already. You know what I mean?
Well, I think you're going to find this process is going to be recursive. One thing that we're noticing with the other committees, and I'm sure it's true here too, is that as you go through this process, and you're building on everything you've done before, you're going to come back and review what you've already done. In some cases, you're going to look at it and say, hey, we already touched on this, but we didn't think about that. Now that I have that information, I'd like to talk about this again. So I think you're going to see,
And then do some
circling
revision?
back. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, you don't have to have all the answers right now today.
No.
But we are just starting the discussion.
Right, and so, I mean, do you want to work through the questions that are on the,
Yeah.
yeah. Do you want to take a look at those and see if those help frame your discussion?
I'd really like to mail these out again.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Send these out for number 2.
Mail
If you
number
get these
2.
printed, like we did the last go round, and send these out for number 2.
In the mail.
Yeah, yes.
Um,
And get this like real soon,
Mm-hmm.
like in a week or 10 days, that says, what's it say? Land use planning, right here. Land use planning.
But maybe with a little
I'll show you
education.
the one that got mailed out.
okay, well, we probably have, what we need to check on is how we're budgeted for mailing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because this mailing is expensive.
Yep.
Yeah, and I certainly can't
Well,
afford to do
And like I was thinking, see how it goes. And I wouldn't think, this area, I would use it out here in town. Who knows? Might be a whole different ballgame of marketing. But out here, to me, that would be a great tool.
So you're thinking, mail it in this community, mail it for this.
At least a couple, 3 times. If
planning.
they still don't show up, I would quit.
And
Well-
again, with some education, because we have come to learn kind of what this means, but people won't know how it relates to them. Like, what does this mean? Something
Well, there's a phone number.
like zoning, that we'll be discussing zoning. And zoning means what you can and can't do on your property. Something, that kind of basic language that we may all know what it means, but a lot of people don't.
Yeah, well, right. Well, like I'm gathering something that happened to me personally. So I was headed to work on Saturday, and somebody was right there on 26 at 53. They were cutting up cars, and they started a fire. And oh my gosh, we've got a fire in the middle of the summer, in the middle of the woods. And, you know, those kinds of activities, because I mean, it wasn't just, I mean, I think it looked to me like there was a huge pile of metal and whatever burning, and who knows what could have exploded. But I'm just thinking that again, back to the zoning for certain kinds of activities. It's like, you know, the people in the surrounding area that are living there, this is why we have zoning, you know, and so that they don't see it as just government telling, you know, oppressive government always telling us what to do. There's some purposes here.
Right.
Number 2, emerging technologies. That the county needs to utilize to increase. Is there any other we don't know about?
Probably.
Something new? Is there?
Well, we don't have chip implants in our brains yet.
Other than we discussed.
Well, there's the internet, and there's push messages on phones, and a lot of people find those intrusive.
Yeah,
Should we start a Twitter account?
Again, push notices on phones, intrusive. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but when people move out to an area as rural as this, an awful lot of the time, they really actually like to be a little disconnected.
Correct.
yeah.
So there is a certain personal responsibility, I guess, on the part of the person here to go look for the information, or at least check in periodically, maybe. But again, I mean, I think I'm back to what you're talking about education. In other words, why is this important to me? Because we wouldn't be able to do a mailing every single time somebody wants to, add a lavatory out of the fish hatchery, or, put in vaulted toilets over at that park, or we do our public notification that we're supposed to, and that may be only to 20 or 30 households or addresses or whatever. It won't be to a couple thousand people. It won't be. So if you want to know something, where do you go?
I'm still a fan of email.
Out here.
Out here, yeah.
Yeah, I'm still a fan of
Well-
email because when I get an email, I can see it on here.
I just
And
call
it's
it.
not intrusive. I only open it if I want to.
Right.
Well, I would, yeah.
And I think that's all I can think of is trying to get people to provide their email address to keep informed.
Well, what's the cost difference of, like when we had the open house, what's the cost difference of something like that versus the mailings?
The open houses are a little expensive because of the amount of staff time that goes into it. I mean,
But I'm not thinking for you guys. But you'd be there, just like you'd be pushing the mailings, you'd be there. Well, I mean, I'm just wondering if there could be a different form of the open house. Okay. I am a computer geek, but sometimes I almost think that, that we end up more disconnected with the digital age than less connected. And sometimes I'm just, my degree is in human sciences, and I just think that just old-fashioned rubbing elbows and and exchanging thoughts and conversations is maybe more, it's another tool in addition to what you're suggesting there. I think that people need to get to meet each other and express what they're thinking about.
Are there any community events or gathering places?
Well, see, I'm thinking like Hamlet just had their barbecue, which is the, and I'm thinking how active the Miss Birkenfeld, they have a big organization there, and they're quite active in their community. And I'm just wondering if there's a way that there's something that's already kind of in place and going, and I don't know whether we could utilize some of that organization or that place for a gathering or something. But I'm just wondering so maybe not something as big and formal as an open house, but a way for, I don't know, a few snacks, minus the beer, to just try to entice people to come and engage.
Just being able to be out there and mingling on common ground at an event like the Ms. Birkenfeld.
Yeah, Hamlet was the one that just had the barbecue, but Miss Birkenfeld, I think they have a picnic as well, and they've got that really kind of big complex over there, and they seem pretty active in their community in terms of even how they'll go out and inspect burn piles and that kind of thing. They've really got a much more complete organization than Hamlet does, for example.
Are there any upcoming events that you can think of?
Well, the Hamlet, the focus on Hamlet Road, and of course this is just Hamlet Road I'm talking about, they have the community schoolhouse, and they've got a series of, I just got the flyer, and that's what made me think of it. There's a series of events there, and I'm just wondering if I approach them. I've already been thinking in terms of trying to get more fire, and how it is to live out in a rural area, information when you should have a fire, when you shouldn't, watching for certain times of year as you're going down the road, looking for smoke, all those kinds of things that there's a lot of new people moving in the area that just don't know about that kind of stuff. There was a fire on 26 in a little open area near Camp 18 less than a month ago. Yeah, somebody just started a fire in a box. So, and people just don't understand this stuff.
3 or 4 things. What do other locations like ours do in the state to get to?
That's an interesting question, and it's one I don't have an answer to.
That would be a thing to
Yeah,
ask. How do they succeed?
Or do they succeed?
Do they succeed? Do you have your calculator on? Could you do me 147 divided by 0.42?
350.
35 cents. Okay. So that's what these flyers cost us in that. 35 cents a piece to each. And there was 304. I think it was 42. 342 LC postal homes that got those.
I didn't get one.
There we go. So
Where were they
there's
sent?
342 to work with in this, and that's the same number that they do for the LC environmental fire when we send something out. It's the same number because it's the LC mail holders.
Okay, right.
This area,
Mm-hmm.
and that was that. So, but what I can do too is the one I know of is the LC fire department email database for our stuff. I can put a reminder in there for them. Your people over there, that group in NIST that has their thing, probably has an emailer list. Ask them, please.
Oh, you mean Hamlet?
Hamlet probably does,
No,
yeah.
we were talking about Miss Berkenfield too.
Well, right.
Ask them if they have an email
Okay.
database that you can put something in there on for that.
We may not have
Would be really cool.
leave to use that database though.
Right.
Permission from the people who own those email addresses. It's for a
They'll know.
specific thing.
Just like the school, they won't let you use it either.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Well,
If we could get in the West Oregon Electric magazine once a month, early, printed the previous month, because they'll give you a free page.
What's the name of that magazine?
West Oregon Electric.
Yeah, right. The rural line.
That's
The rural light, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a
Okay.
good one.
Yes.
Everybody reads the rural
And
light.
then that would
Yes.
go.
Yeah, actually, yeah. That
That-
would be.
I don't know how big. I had a map too. You guys got that map too. Which area out here does West Oregon Electric go into the?
It's huge.
See, we're 4. We're number 4. I don't know what's up
Yeah,
here?
well, for example, once you get
Yeah,
into
but-
Seaside proper,
Yeah, this is
it's
Pacific
PP&L.
Yeah, that's
Right,
So-
but West Oregon goes quite a ways.
Goes quite a ways. Does it
It
go
probably-
to the edge of
it probably
Seaside? I
overlaps
knew that
too.
It goes
it's
past
I don't know.
2
50,
districts.
Right.
I don't
So you can
know
put maybe
how
2
That's
in
what-
there
that's
for
what
2
I don't
different
know.
meetings.
Yeah.
And they do it in a second. They love to put stuff in.
So does number 5 include? I mean, what happens with the cities? In terms of, because there's still zoning, right? For the cities.
Each of the cities has its own zoning. They are separate municipal governments.
Okay.
They are their own thing.
Okay.
So they have their own planning, they have their own zoning, they have their own building codes, they have their own city councils and mayors and all that good stuff. They are independent. They have an urban growth boundary around them, mostly, that's supposed to be their 20-year land supply for annexation. And so there's kind of this border around each of them, but they're like sovereign. And we're just the rural areas outside the city limits.
Right.
So I'm kind of hearing this idea about maybe periodic type open houses or piggybacking onto established events.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
So maybe like a few times a year or something like that, just kind of to check in with folks.
I like it.
Which way, how? What do you think?
Well, I'm just looking at, if for citizen involvement, I'm just looking at the long term. I mean, beyond the scope of this project, but just the long term.
I think, yeah, I'd like to see us build not just for this, but something so that there's kind of a permanent, a more permanent ongoing connection with the public.
Trying to crack that nut. That's a tough one. I'm going to move on to the third bullet.
Okay, sorry.
Who are underrepresented populations that county needs to make additional efforts to include, and how can that be achieved? Underrepresented populations.
Well, isn't that what we've been talking? In my mind, that's what we've been. Yeah, that's what we've been talking about.
So
Yeah.
that would be like everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
In some of the areas, for example, there's more outreach into underserved populations. For example, Spanish-speaking community,
The Chinook Indian tribe.
the Chinook and Clatsop. Yeah, so that's kind of what that question is aimed at. Is do we have populations that people are underserved or under-recognized?
If I was to say, I would have to, well, of course, my neighborhood, elderly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about low income?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're off the map.
Yeah.
They're off the map.
Yep.
Who are the under? Well, we're just asking who. That's my two. Who are they?
Yeah, I would
And how
agree.
can that
And
make additional efforts to include them?
there are.
They still get the
people-
mail. They don't get. A lot of them don't get internet.
Well, that's what I was going to say. There are still people that don't
Yeah.
do anything electronically.
Right. I was
Oh.
thinking about that too, but I was trying to. Well, I don't know if I wanted to make that assumption.
So how do
But I
you get-
agree.
How would you get all those? With mail. That's the only. It's the only. If they do get their mail, because they probably get a check from something. And
Canvassing or mail. Right?
yep.
Go knock on some doors.
Well, and the problem with canvassing in my area is that there are people on my road that, I mean, I don't know that it's there anymore, but I went down to the end of Hamlet Road one day. This was several years ago, and there was a sign up saying, nobody beyond this point or you're going to get shot or something like that.
Front door is pretty far from the property line.
Yeah, and so I like the mailing idea and then just trying to draw people in with. I think we just need to build more community.
How can we raise some money to pay for the mailers?
Well,
That would take care of that
I know
argument.
we have a budget set for this process.
Sure.
And I don't know where we're at and if it's, itemized that this is how much we have for mailers. I don't know if it's a big pot.
Well, I can kind of
Enough.
answer a little bit of
Okay.
that. We have, in county budgeting, we actually have line items, and every year we figure out how much we think we're going to spend this year based on the projects that we know are coming, and the contingencies and the emergencies that we don't know are coming, but which seem to be, regular enough that you can kind of go, yeah, something's going to come up. And based on that, and past practice, we look at and put aside budgeted line item amounts for specific things. And mailing is one thing, legal notices, published notices, we have all, those are broken out. So if we need to budget more, then we go to our budget committee and our board of commissioners and say this line needs to be increased for this. Now, we are what is called a general fund department, which means that we are part of the county's general fund, although a lot of the county's budget for the community development planning side is actually from video lottery money. And so rather a large, significant chunk of our budget is, of our staff is paid for by video lottery. So every time you're out there pulling a slot machine, that's us. Anyway, those are monies that come to us from the state for people who are playing video poker in this area. So that's part of it. But we're also somewhat fee funded, not to the degree that building codes is. Building codes, which is also part of community development, is funded by fees. They charge directly what it costs to do work. We are subsidized by the taxpayers on our side. So if you go buy an $84 development permit from us, for example, that $84 is not what it actually costs to do that development permit. There's a whole lot of other things that go into issuing you a development permit. All the background, all the mapping, when we're standing up there at the counter, there's already been a tremendous investment into what it takes to put together that development permit for you for $84. It's probably, per permit, it's probably several hundred.
Oh, yeah.
If we do a conditional use permit for somebody, $658. Doesn't require a hearing, but it has a whole bunch of components to it, public notice, all that sort of stuff. It might cost the applicant $658. It's costing the county probably well over $1,000.
Right. Well, I'm a person that applied for a conditional use permit over 20 years ago, and it was $750 back then. Mm-hmm. That was a lot of money for me.
Yeah.
And so as a private citizen, my experience was they said, you need to pay this, and I was okay with that, as part of the permitting process. But they said, we don't know whether you're going to get it or not, but you still have to pay it. That's one, I don't know if that can be changed, but I think that's a real negative. When somebody tries to apply for and then they don't even get it, and then they had to pay the money anyway. And I know that there's the cost involved, but for an individual, I think it's a big negative.
So typically,
it was for me, and I don't think of myself as an anti-government person.
Is that an issue that's coming down the list here?
Well, it's probably something that underlies everything we do. People come in and make applications to do things, and if you are doing something that's like on the list of stuff that can be done, and you can meet the conditions or the requirements of the code, then there's no reason to expect you would not be able to do it. If you're farther afield, it becomes more iffy. We don't know because we have to work through the process. And that's where you might have heard somebody say, I can't guarantee that you'll be successful.
That's what your department said, yeah.
And that's what we tell people. Mostly where I am ending up telling people that is when they come in and they want to change the zoning on their property. And I had this conversation within the last 48 hours twice on different properties where somebody wants to spot zone, which the state will not permit us to do. And so it's completely surrounded by F80, which is Forestry 80, and they'd like to spot zone it into RA5 because what they want to do on that piece of property is something you can do in the RA5, but you can't do it out here. And so I'm telling them, because I can't tell you cannot apply, but I can tell you that staff is probably not going to be able to support that application. You're going to need to hire a consultant to make that application. You're going to need to do exceptions to statewide land use goals. You're going to spend between $5,000 and $10,000 in application fees and map fees. I have no idea what the consultant is going to cost you, and I can tell you that the Department of Land Conservation and Development is probably going to appeal a decision if it were approved, and we don't think that county staff can support it. So probably it's spot zoning. It probably is not going to be successful, but I can't tell you not to make the application.
So it's kind of a gamble, in a way.
Well, that's one I wouldn't take personally.
Right.
I mean, I try and tell people the truth, which is I can't tell you for sure that that's not going to be approved, but I would say 99% chance it's not going to be approved. Mm-hmm. So that's what we try and tell people, because we really don't want to take your money that way.
Right.
We don't want to waste your time or your money.
Yeah.
So people do try and tell people, that one might not make it.
Right,
but the other thing we tell people is, hey, you want to open a commercial venture in a commercial zone, you've got enough parking, These are going to be some of the things that you would be, having as conditions of approval. Your hours, your, number of employees can't exceed whatever those conditions might be. So, but if you can meet those conditions, there's no reason to believe that you won't be successful.
So your odds are much better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, now there's one where I bumped into over in Westport. Nice little coffee shop. The guy's just, tied up in knots.
Mr. McVeigh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I don't know him personally, but it just seems like a nice little alternative venue there. And the regulations on the parking and everything is, sounds like, I don't know a lot about it, tying him up in knots. And I think that's sad. There's another negative, for, and I know that it's important to have, that there's a reason why those regulations were put in place, but I think it's kind of for a town the size of Westport.
And Westport is a rural community, so it has rural community zoning, which is very specific. You will be happy to know that Mr. McVeigh was just approved for sit-down seating.
For parking.
Yeah, he has a variance for the parking standard,
Good.
and he has sit-down seating, and he's almost, is he at the end of his, all he's got to do is, I think, get you another site
He's
plan.
probably about a week out from
Okay.
having approval.
Throwing tables out.
He looks like he's got a viable, decent business, and yes, it's kind of a kooky little old building, and
It's got kooky transportation issues, he's got a very challenging property if you start taking it apart.
Right.
And he's got property across the highway. Unfortunately, it's not adjacent, so it doesn't get to count toward his parking based on what the requirements are. Also, would you want, I don't know if you know how busy Highway 30 is right there. Would you want your clientele running back and forth across the highway?
No.
So
that's the sad part there.
yeah, it's like that. So anyway, we're hopeful that with having the sit-down seating, that in another week or so he'll be able to put out that things will go well for him.
Yeah.
That's what we're hoping. But yeah, he was successful in his permitting. He got a variance.
Okay.
That's tough.
Yeah, good.
Victoria worked on that.
Yeah.
That's good.
Well, I think that, it seems like a nice little viable, addition to the community, and so I'm glad that happened.
Is it in a commercial zone?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's an old gas station. So
Yeah.
it was designed
it's
to
cute.
go in and out, so it's on this corner lot. So it's got an awful lot of lot coverage of the building, so there's no parking.
Yeah.
So a commercial venture where people go in and sit down and dine with no parking, that's kind of a problem.
Yeah.
So anyway, he did get a variance to the parking. It limits the number of tables he can have, but anyway, we're hopeful that.
I think a lot of it's because I know if I go through there, I'm more of a drive-through.
Yeah.
He's got and the drive-through is really pretty convenient.
Yeah. So anyway, we are all hoping very much that works out really well for him.
But I think that some of those kinds of things, and like what I bumped into when I was getting ready to build my house, it's like if we can, with this other, these other things we're talking about, to build community connections so that people get an understanding for, all the pieces of the puzzle, at least on a high level, so that it's just not, they wouldn't let me do it.
Just say no. What does county planning do? They just say no and take
Yeah,
our money.
yeah.
It's education again as to why we
It does come
have
back to that.
these rules and why do we have zoning? Well, do you want a boat dismantling business next door to you? No, it's
My neighbor got a nuke, and now I want one.
yeah.
And generally, we do refund money if it's very apparent that we can't support the application.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
if they go through the process, we aren't able
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
But if we get partway through something and tell someone, hey, you know what, this is what you're up against. Do you want to withdraw? Because I can give you at least a partial refund.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I've got 6 hours into it. We have to charge you for that. But, we can still.
I wasn't told anything like that, and I'm just relating. Like I say, I'm really actually a pro-government person, but I could, see how this and, you know, and what Mr. McVeigh was struggling with, how those things are what get, you know, talked about and published, and, you know, and then, yeah, and then this process is just kind of in the background.
Right. And it does seem onerous, but at the same time, I mean, the reason that we examined his business is to keep it, you know, a healthy and safe environment for the community. You know, there are reasons that there are restrictions.
Oh, sure. And it's just like I know that there were reasons why my application was being, you know, and I, you know, I'm a total fan of the LCDC and all that stuff, but it's just that I'm just, you know, I know there's limited funds and everything, but you know, for the amount of money that's being poured into this state, I do feel bad that us, you know, an individual with a limited income has to face some of this kind of thing when, you know, if you had more funding, then it seems like some of these small things like the application process and everything could be more friendly and less, you know, less onerous.
Number 3.
Sorry.
So we got the elder and the people with less income. How do we get a hold of them? And you're going to check on mailer money?
We'll check and see if that's something that we could like do a couple of mailings at the next CAC. But again, what we're really looking at is for the whole long stretch, the next 20 years. Long after you guys have finished with this.
Okay.
It's like 20 years from now. And technology is going to change on us too. But, you know, what communities are we not reaching? Who's out there we don't know about? And so you're here. Who do we not know about? Well, the elderly and the low income who tend to not be as connected electronically. So that's a good point.
20 years from now.
Yeah.
I'm all for that. I'll work on that. We'll work on it.
Okay, and I'll check and see if we can cough up a little bit of mailing money.
Okay, we'll go to number 4. So back to the statewide goal. Ms. Clapson County's number 1 goal, consistent with the requirements of statewide goal 1, which is the existing policy in Clapson County. Oops, next sentence. Required. Okay.
That was
with the requirements of statewide goal 1.
So there's that checklist that you had, the goal 1 citizen involvement checklist.
Is that
I don't know
worksheet?
if you had a chance to work on that, but that's sort of where that falls in.
Where's that one?
Should be at the
It
end.
would have been given to you at your last meeting.
Oh,
I
right.
think it is at
Here we
the
go.
end.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Found it. I just plugged it in. Right. Okay, here we go.
So those are the elements of goal 1.
So how much can we do on our own when we're connecting with people? That's the other thing you were talking, when we were talking about the cost of the open houses and stuff. So, I mean, I'm just wondering if there's anything that I could do at a Hamlet schoolhouse gathering, for example.
Tell people, take a
Separate
If you want,
from,
we can send you a couple extra flyers, or you know, if you know that something's coming up, you can say you're an advocate for this process.
right.
You know, you're not just an extension of the county, but you are the community. You're the face of the community.
Yeah,
So
I'm wanting to start building those connections, but I don't want to go outside, what my boundaries here, and again, I'm trying to get more comfortable with what I'm representing, so that it's easier for me to market it.
Yeah, so that's goal 1 there. Those are basically what we do or what we try to do now, and how are we doing?
And also, I mean, if now that we've had a little bit of a discussion and maybe have a better understanding of it, that's something we can revisit at the next meeting. This doesn't have to be the end of the citizen involvement goal 1 discussion. We can bleed over and you can spend some time looking at that and we can maybe see if anything came up,
Something I just thought of, because people work different schedules and whether they're morning meetings, evening meetings, people can attend. If we do a mailer, encourage people to maybe give us their email. I just read one of these, is establish two-way communication.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to go to all the meetings when we were working on making the part of the Lower Nehalem Wild and Scenic River. And those meetings were in the evenings down in Nehalem, and I couldn't go to all of the meetings. But there was a mechanism there to submit comments, and that fosters two-way communication. So if we let people know that these meetings are coming up, and today we're going to be talking about citizen involvement, and that they can't make the meeting, how can they submit their ideas to us without physically being here? That's fostering two-way communication to where people can participate even if they can't be here.
That's good.
I like that.
Yeah.
Something maybe that's a little bit less exposed than posting on our Facebook page.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Was that on their website or
How is that?
the comments?
That I was on a mailing list. It was Oregon State Parks that did that process, and you could sign up. Again, I had to give them my email, and then they would send me notices of meetings, and there was a link on there to make comments. So I wasn't replying directly to the email, but there was a link for submitting comments. And especially out here, and we have weather and conflicts, that would draw in a lot of people, because if they can still make their thoughts known, even though they can't be here, that empowers a lot of people, and we could learn from that.
Yeah, I can remember it hasn't really been all that long. I guess I should preface this with, I've been in county government since 1992, and when I first started working for the county, we didn't all have email addresses, and we didn't have a website, and we didn't have a whole lot of things. And somewhere along the line, I moved into the planning department in 2002, so 10 years later. They still didn't have the website stuff. We still didn't have, and we started just in 04, 03, 04. We started saying, well, let the public, because we were so closed in with what we were permitted to do to accept public comment. So we had gone from come to the meeting and testify or send a letter to the board chair to also saying, well, you can send a fax. And then all of a sudden, and then all of a sudden it was like, well, why can't they send us an email? Oh, well, here, the county said, here, we'll provide you with a department address, and ours is comdev@co.clatsop.or.us. Here, you can have a department address. So all of a sudden we started providing people with, here's another way to get public comment to us. You can send us an email. Well, I have to tell you, the last hearing I just did, all my public comment came via email. I didn't get one letter. I did have some people come and speak, but all the public comment was via email, and I did not get any faxes.
But see, there we have the
But
two-way communication.
But it was evolving. I mean, you can see this evolving as the electronic forum does. And so we've said now, yes, you have more ways to talk to us, and you can talk to us via email. Well, I've got people who are emailing me from their computers at work or from their phones, or, we are not yet to the point where we're able to do messaging because you don't have enough. Part of the public comment process is that you stand up and say, hi, my name is, this is my address or my mailing address, and this is my public comment. That people we're not able yet, I think legally, to take an anonymous comment.
So if we were discussing different issues, is that considered public comment?
Sure.
We just ask, so we have to, if they send us an email, they have to state their name and their address and all the parameters of official public
they
comment?
They should sign it the same way they would a letter of testimony. But if it's somebody with their email address and say it's Ginny at thesunstillshining.com, then that's enough of that's enough. We can take that, and then they say
Just their email address is what you're saying.
We have accepted that, and
Okay.
so it's, if Ginny at thesunistillshining.com sends an email to you and says, yes, please forward that, then you can send it on to us and say, yeah, I know Ginny, here's her email. Okay, we'll put it in the record. Yeah, we'll put that in the record.
I think that's a really good way to do it.
Great.
Yeah.
But I failed to see anybody take an action to do that. So how do you motivate them to do that?
I know, that's still a problem.
That's
Well, again, I keep trying to, tapping into what you said, I keep trying to think of ways to get the buy-in, and why things need to be a certain way. And, the first thing that comes to mind for me is that if we don't have an identification process of some kind, then you could be, the scales could be tipped by somebody in New York or somebody in, Chicago or something like that. That one of the reasons for the identification process is that we know that, you're a Clatsop County person that's, wants to be a part of how this county's going to do things.
So one of the interesting things is that regardless of where you live in the world or where you own property or anything like that, you still have the same voice. And so somebody in New York on Fifth Avenue can provide public comment on what we get frequently are energy projects, for example. Think liquefied natural gas, for example. So somebody from New York, from Fifth Avenue, or Texas, from Brownsville, or wherever,
Or Wall Street.
Can provide, that'd be the Fifth Avenue, yeah, can provide public comment. But their public comment doesn't weigh more than this person down the street. So all of those comments then come forward to the deciding body on something big scale, like a natural gas plant or exporting terminal. It's going to go from the Planning Commission's recommendation to the Board of Commissioners, and the board is going to take all of that, and we will. What we saw last time is the board reading all that public comment, but the things that they're looking at, it's based on the code. And it isn't just this guy wants to make a lot of money or whatever. It's based on what the code says. And if you can do this legally, and if you can meet the standards and you don't have this negative impact, well, if it's a great big huge project, there's probably a whole bunch of standards that need to be met. There's probably a whole bunch of conditions of approval, and it may not pass the test. So that's where you're going to see a denial, and they ended up appealing it, and the company went away finally after it was bankrupt. But anyway.
Oh, you're talking about the LNG.
I'm talking about LNG specifically because that's my example, because that's what draws comment from the other side of the country.
Yeah.
If it's something smaller, it's just affecting the community.
Right.
It's the community that's going to respond. I mean, we see the scale of these things, and we see how it plays out, and somebody wanting to start a gas station in Elsie is not going to draw public comment from Wall Street.
Right. But it does sound like, the people with deep pockets could go through the whole appeal process and somehow get the project through. I mean, I was always worried about that LNG thing.
All people were. And yet they still went away.
Let's do the 2 bullets.
Okay.
Which of the existing policies in Clatsop County Goal 1 should be retained and which should be removed?
Okay, so those are on your worksheet. Yeah.
This one.
So which of those policies are working and which ones should stay and which ones should be removed?
So where we see policy, you're talking about policy 1, 2.
Yeah, all those
Okay.
policies, yeah.
So again, we can
We can
discuss that after you've had time to look those over.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so the next one is which new policy should be added. So that would be this.
Yeah, so it's, I mean, you have time, you can think about this.
Why do people change? That's the, when the suffering gets so bad, I better change. That's how people change.
Mm-hmm.
I'm tired of being in pain, suffering. And if they could identify with one of these goal issues of where they're at in their life, that's the one I'm going to show up for.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if I could change that one and
That's
figure out.
why it's important to
Yeah.
send out,
Yeah.
if we do a mailing, if we spend the money
Oh.
for a mailing, I would like it to be really comprehensive as
Yeah.
far as basic education, why this is important to you, how it can affect you, and then,
What is that?
Ron, like the one Gail did, that lists the
Yeah.
different goals.
Like under here, under here, and land use plan, and just put a little brief bullet of what that
What does that
means.
mean?
What does that
Yeah.
mean? Right here. Question mark. What does that mean?
In basic
Mhm.
terms, like
To-
what you can and
what-
can't
what
do
do we
on
do?
your property.
What is
That
what's the
everybody
big
can
deal?
understand.
Yeah.
Because what does land use planning mean?
Well,
A little more layman's
For the
terms.
future.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, well, like my example is, would you like to have a housing development? You know, you moved out here to get, get away from, all the
Some
crazy,
more explanation.
suburb city
Mhm.
stuff. I mean, because the suburbs do offer, some
Yeah.
advantages to families, but people that move out here for a reason. Why would you want a housing development next to you? If we don't have zoning and planning, you could end up with a housing development next to you when that wasn't your intention when you moved out here. And that's kind of where I've been trying to build in my mind for the anti-regulation people, that there's a reason that these things work.
Did you have a lot of anti-regulation people?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
What?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So that's where I'm trying to build and Ron, just stop me if I'm spending too much, lengthening this meeting. But that's where I've been headed in my brain, is to come up, like you're saying, and you were talking about when you looked at the table of contents, things that they can completely relate to.
Even if you can, we don't mail these, because I'll put these up in papers and wherever. If you look, because this is a two-part thing. If they can see that, and that's what that means, and we're going to do what? Why are we doing this? Oh,
A cheat sheet.
yeah. That would be really helpful.
Okay.
Yeah.
And maybe in that mailing, I keep harping on asking them to sign up with an email address for updates.
Well, if we can get them here, and then you do have that sign-up thing we used to sign up for.
Yeah, there is a sign up.
Volunteer.
Oh, yeah, yes. I
Voluntarily.
didn't pull it out because I think I
Yeah.
have all your email addresses.
I was to say we don't have the.
That would be the linchpin.
Well, we do. I mean, I sent out to the two people,
Correct.
to the three people who attended the last meeting. They got added to the
I'm surprised
list
Miss
and they got a
Sanderson showed
copy.
up, which I was hoping.
Who was that?
Sanderson.
Yeah, I think when I talked to Gail, if he
And-
wasn't here,
Either one.
Well, Matt is actually on the committee.
Yeah.
I think Gail
Is there-
said if he didn't
is
show up
he?
today, he's
Is
not.
on.
Okay, we need to go over this. We'll review citizen involvement again. Public comment, input. Okay. Distribute background material for next meeting? Yes.
Put your stuff to you.
Yes. Any more thoughts, questions, concerns, comments?
We can return to those worksheets and look at them a little if you want to. You want to do that for a few minutes? See if you have any questions for us. I'm not saying you have to finish them right now or anything like that, but just if you want to discuss them a little bit as a group, to make sure.
And I am just gonna say a quick, thing about goal 2 is a lot of this is just the separate, listing the separate tax lots that we're taking exception to. So just,
County
that's a
wide.
really big
not
bulk of that
site
paper.
specific out here.
There
It's-
probably are some out
Yeah.
here. Yeah, there would be some out here. So where you have RA1 zoning, residential agriculture 1 or 2 or 5 zoning, probably tourist commercial zoning, any general commercial zoning, those zones are probably going to, the tax lots that are in those zones are probably in that list unless they have been created since, or their numbers have changed since that list was compiled in 1980-ish. But at the time that that list was compiled, those were the goal exceptions.
Mhm.
So there are some out here. The vast majority of those numbers are from the concept plans, though.
And did any of you make it to the DLCD presentation about goal 2?
That's right, Ron was there.
You did,
Oh,
okay.
thank you for doing
Oh,
There
that.
is a PDF
Whoa.
version of the presentation that they gave. I mean, it won't be the
Okay.
same as Lisa Phipps giving it to you because she was lovely, but
Yeah,
Yeah,
I wanted to be there, I just.
I'll see if I can
Yeah.
find it online
Can we do that too?
and link it. And if I can't find it online, then I'll send you a copy of the PDF of the presentation.
Yeah.
That's okay, right?
So yeah, we tried to record it, so we have this lovely video recording of Lisa standing there talking with no audio. The audio failed.
You can
Oh,
read along
no.
and pretend.
That's true.
Oh, no. Okay. That's too bad.
Yeah, it is too bad.
Read
She did a
lips.
great job.
Yeah, she's great. But she's also, I think, is she presenting the goals 3 and 4?
She's probably going to be there for goals 3 and 4, but really a lot of that is going to be Tim Murphy,
Okay.
who is the farm forest specialist for the Department of Land Conservation and Development, and he is a very smart guy.
Yeah.
So anyway,
So-
I'm looking forward to that one especially. Goal
Yeah,
2 was
yeah.
much more interesting to me than I realized it would be because I've worked with it, so much I didn't think much about it. But then Lisa got up and really did a great presentation.
Wonderful. And there will be lunch.
Oh yeah,
So-
understood.
If you can make it, it'll be good.
Oh, yeah.
So, anyway,
Yeah, so-
that's for next time.
I've got that one set
Yeah, so these
aside.
are my notes off Lisa's talk right here.
About stuff that Julia already knows about.
Do we have any questions? Well, yeah. We pretty much hit on a lot of it.
Have you hit on most of them, you think?
Yeah.
So, I mean, just if you want to bring them, fill out the worksheets, write your notes up and down the back or whatever.
Sure.
Okay, yeah,
Bring
that's,
them to the next meeting, that's fine.
yeah,
Sure.
okay.
No
That
worries.
was the thing, it's such a beautiful, and I know how expensive this is, that's why I was worried about writing on
It
it.
is
so-
yours.
Okay.
Yeah, make your notes.
You
It's
can
fine.
even put it in a different binder from Lisa Frank or whatever.
So that's a good question. So at the end of each goal, there's one of these?
Mhm.
Good.
Some of them will be more
Thanks for
useful.
making it simple.
Yeah.
Or,
It's our whole hope is that we make it as easy for you to give us the feedback.
well, that would be, so if we had a community person here, what would could they do on these?
Sure.
That's what it's for,
Yeah.
theoretically.
Yeah, you're our liaison to some degree between the community and us, so you're the ones doing the hard work, but, ask people their opinions, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, this
So
is-
would
this is
be the
what I'm-
scorecard.
The more the merrier.
Yeah, this is what I'm trying to find out is where my
Move forward.
Yeah,
boundaries
this is,
are.
it's just another tool.
Otherwise, why are we
It's just
doing
another
this?
tool to
Yeah.
improve
Yeah.
communication.
Okay. Okay.
That's why when I was thinking about these community meeting things, that's why I was thinking, well, yeah, it doesn't have to, can we do something that's maybe even less formal than an open house, just to try to, create more, informal connection spaces so that, we can, so there's a lot of different ways to build the connections.
Just a question, do you guys have a senior meal site out here anyplace?
Deafness as a tropic pin. Never heard of that.
The senior meal sites?
No. Meal sites.
Yeah, like the Granges lots of times.
Oh,
Oh, no, see, there's one in Vernonia, but that's Columbia.
Yeah.
No, there's nothing like that.
Good comment, because to find organizations that you can, there's like, well, the fire guys, so that's one. It's probably the only one that I know of that I could even be a volunteer at to do something to create change. So there's that one. Other than that, school.
The school,
Right.
which is its own little.
The school is a hub, and it is its own. I think you're right. Yeah.
So there, in your miss.
So is that just a community group, or is it through the fire department?
You mean that, Miss
Yeah.
Birkenfeld? Well, it's kind of, I don't, I live over on Hamlet Road, but I did originally live in Mist, and so I know a lot of people there. And so I'm sorry if I'm confusing you, but I mean, I just know a lot of people from the Mist Birkenfeld area, and I'm real impressed with they have a lot of visibility in that community. The fire department does.
The ones like that are far and few between.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Hamlet doesn't have that same. I mean, I think they could get there, but they just it's a smaller community, that kind of thing.
I'll be curious to see how the potluck goes. Who did you say, which group is doing the potluck?
That is the Lewis and Clark, only Woluski, CAC.
Yeah, I'll be really curious to see if that draws people in and while they're there, if they send email addresses or want to become more involved.
Yeah. I'm taking potato salad, I think.
Yeah, good.
So I can't see it here, but does Rule 5 include any of the towns down Highway 53? So, like, for example, if you go down Highway 53, you get to Mosier, you get to...
Oh, no,
You're
that's
across
out
the
of...
county
That's
line.
you've crossed the
that's-
county line
yeah,
at that
you're
point.
in
You're in Tillamook, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, they're down Highway 53. We don't have a town. I mean,
There's no towns,
No.
yeah.
And then once you get to one, that's the end.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There's. I'm kind of making Ron's point. There is that, that Hamlet schoolhouse and the fire area there is, that's clear up at the north end of 53 that's on this map, and it tends to just, the people that are on Hamlet Road seem to be, I don't see many people drawing very many people currently organically from the southern part of 53.
Well, there's the fish hatchery, but
Yeah.
It's a tough go.
Yeah.
It's time to could I make a motion that we adjourn the meeting?
well, you're the chair. You can decide that, but the motion usually is going to come from one of the other constituents out here.
Someone like to make a motion?
Yeah.
I get a second.
I second it.
Thank you.
Okay, so you're adjourned.